This record is part of the Real Illusions trilogy. As a matter of fact, the name of the record is actually The Story of Light, Real Illusions of A.
Number 2, right?
Yeah, it's like number 2. But the songs aren't in any kind of linear sequential order to the story. You know, the story is something that slowly kind of like unfolds in pieces. And then my desire is to, at some point in the future, release another record that's within the Real Illusions format, and then after that take the 3 records and put them in the proper order, and a lot of the songs that have melodies would be vocal melodies, and then you'd be able to listen and hear the story from beginning to end.
So we will have to wait for the 3rd chapter, I guess. Right.
Another thing, it was really nice to be able to, like with John the Revelator, I needed somebody to sing it, and I found, I met up with this really great singer, Beverly McClellan. You know, she's
That's right.
Just this unbelievable light, you know, and when she sings, it just goes out, and she's so talented, and I sent her the track, and, you know, she was very interested to sing on it, and she just nailed it. You know, it was like 2 takes or something, you know. I'm so impressed with her, I invited her on tour to open the show. So it'll be quite the contrast, but, you know, that's me.
Right.
You know, to have her playing acoustic guitar and singing to open my show, and then have me come out. But then she'll sing John the Revelator during the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and another really, there was a couple of great highlights for me on this record. And another was the song No More Amsterdam.
Sure.
Yeah, so I had this riff, and it was something about it that I liked. And it fit in with the story, the concept. You know, the concept is, you know, there's this, in the story, there's this place where these people from this town go, and there's like inside of this big building is like a pond. And they look in the pond, and when they look in the pond, they see different sort of dimensions of themselves, you know? So in this one, for No More Amsterdam, there was this one guy, and he looks into the pond, and he sees the reflection of his like guardian angel or his better judgment, or, you know, and they have a conversation, and my idea was to, you know, sing this with somebody. And I was having trouble with the lyrics, and I've known Amy Mann from college. Yeah, we went to Berkeley together. And,
oh, I didn't know you guys were there at the same time.
Yeah, we lived in the same building. She was a couple of doors down, you know. And she was really good friends with my girlfriend at the time, who was Pia. Because Pia and I met, you know,
a while ago.
Yeah, in college. So through the years, Pia was always in touch with, you know, she was in touch with what Amy was doing and bought her records. So I was always being exposed to Amy's music, and I really liked it. You know, I thought there was something about her voice that was very vulnerable, but very, you know, very confident, you know. And her lyrics are like poetry, you know. I called her, and I sent her the track, and she liked it, and she wrote the lyrics, and they fit in perfectly with what I was doing. And we sang it together, and it was just so great, you know. It really was an evolutionary experience for me, because I got to feel what it was like to work with somebody that you respect and also create something without any prejudice, you know. And it turned out just so nice.
Yeah, the last question about something that is on the record specifically is the Sunshine Electric Raindrops,
Yeah.
which is a closing number.
Yeah.
It's a very positive, major sounding,
Yeah.
riff-based guitar. That kind of reminds me a little bit of your times with the Eaton Smile.
Yeah.
With so
Yeah, it's very 80s sounding.
it is. There's a twist to it, though. Actually, the sound is huge. What did you use for that?
That's just Evo directly into the Legacy. Most of the sounds on this record are Evo directly into the Legacy. Because I always say, well, I got to change my sound up, you know, I got to try different things. And I do, but I don't like them as much as I like that. It's like that song, Sunshine Electric Raindrops, I let the guitar breathe also. You know, like the guitar sound in Velorum is as big as that, but you don't recognize it as being so, because there's floods of other stuff
course, there's a
that
bunch of other
steal the
things.
frequencies, you know.
Right.
But with Sunshine Electric Raindrops, it's just guitar.
Right.
And also this room, the Harmony Hut, it was the studio was finished just in time for me to start recording guitars, and that room is built a specific way to, you know, like if you go in there, I'll show you, you know, the walls go up like this and they're all uneven and everything, and so there's no reflections. It's got the perfect balance of wood and fabric and glass to create nice acoustics. It's not too live, it's not so dead. So you put a, you know, and if you look in the ceiling, I've got like 6 microphones.
Mm-hmm.
So I can create this this size with just 1 amp, you know, and it's really nice, and that's what Sunshine Electric Raindrops is.
Right.
And it's funny because I had that riff for a long time, and also it sounded so, it does sound 80s-ish.
It
and
does.
It sounds so pop, you know. It's very major sounding. It's very
Right.
up, and it was like, but there was always something about it that I just liked. It made me feel good, you know. And finally, I just told myself, look, man, you know, if it makes you feel good and it feels great to play it, because it's easy, and God knows, you know, it's like, it's nice to have a breather.
Once in a while in your music, right?
Yeah.
Also for you.
Yeah, because, you know, try to play the Moon and I, you know, the
Right.
solo, it's hard. Every song to me has a particular approach and a particular feel, and they're all very, very different, but they're not genre specific,
Of course.
you know. It's like Gravity Storm, you know, that's a really hard song to play, because when I approached it, a lot of people think I'm using a whammy bar, and I'm not. It's all finger bends. And, you know, as a result, the idea was to create this track that had this weight to it, but not weight by tuning down and playing, you know, heavy stuff. It's like to create the illusion of like this gravity, you know. And I came across the idea of doing that by these bends, you know, on almost every phrase. So it was a whole different approach to playing, but that's really exciting, you know. It's like Creamsicle Sunset, you know.
Right.
That was another whole different approach for me. And I started the same way, by telling myself, okay, what are you going to do that's different for you, but isn't something where somebody say, oh, that sounds like Hendrix, or that sounds like Stevie Ray Vaughan, or that sounds like Satriani or Yngwie, right? You know, why I can't do any of that stuff. I mean, I could, but then who would be interested in listening to it, you know? So, like with Creamsicle Sunset, I love the sound of a clean Strat, you know, and although, you know, 80% of the entire, 90% of the record is either Evo or Flow, I wanted to use a Strat on that track, and I used the Eric Johnson Strat. It was
Also,
the best
that
sounding
is
Strat.
an actual Strat, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean, nothing sounds like that, you know. It's not the sound I use all the time, because,
Right.
you know, Strats to me, when they start getting dirty, you know, they're not, and I'm not comfortable playing a Strat. You know, my style is, for the past quarter century, has evolved based on the jam, you know, like Mulligat C.
Right.
There's
I was
no
going to ask
way-
you, what does it mean?
Mulligat C, the song, is a traditional Irish Celtic lullaby. And when I heard this, because I love Celtic music, I heard this track. It's really great to push yourself into territories you're not aware of, you know, stuff that's off your radar, you know, like Gravity Storm or Creamsicle Sunset, you know.
Right.
But Mulligat C was a special case too, because when I heard this woman sing, you know, there's inflections. You know, when you hear somebody singing music from a traditional cultural field, there's a whole different mindset than the kind of music you're used to listening to when you go to iTunes and buy the last Metallica record or whatever. So I explore these other culturals, you know, the cultural music from other countries, and you hear, that's like Freak Show Excess, you know, is all that really weird Bulgarian sensibilities. Right. So the way this woman was singing was it was like precious, you know, it was like all these little nuances and stuff. And I thought, I got to do that on the guitar. You know what I mean? And it's not something I could be inspired to do by any of the music people think I listen to, you know? But by listening to her and deciding, okay, I want my guitar to do that, I came up with ways of playing that was different than what I would normally do. And you know, that song to me is very, very, it's exquisite, you know, because every little phrase, I stopped and I thought about it, and I said, how can I make this sound like a human voice, you know? And it's really difficult because, you know, like one phrase might have, you know, volume control stuff, you know, the turning on and off of the sustainer. You got to get the wah-wah in right the perfect spot to make it speak a certain way, and you got to bend the bar, you know, and do these weird inflections. So it's like, and it's like, whoa,
right?
You know, but
that's
I got to work on it. But one phrase could take a long time to get it to sound that way.
The first time I heard you do that was probably in Flexible.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of that research, I guess, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean that.
To make the guitar almost talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you are an artist or in any field, when you're doing something creative and you stick with it because it excites you, you're going to keep evolving your vision, you know. And when I see myself now, you know, it's the same guy that made Flexible.
Of course.
I don't really know that guy very well anymore. But, you know, I really like that fluid kind of speaking, flexible playing.
Have you heard the latest Van Halen release?
Oh yeah, sure. Listen to it a lot.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I'm really happy that it turned out the way it did. I'm relieved that Edward is really, you know, he's playing. He's really playing. I mean, it sounds like the old Edward to me. It's a very visceral record, you know. It's intense, and Dave sounds great. He's got notes coming out that I never knew, you know, and I recorded him. But I know Dave, you know, he's intense. And I'm sure that he prepared intensely for this record. And even if he's, you know, over the past X amount of years, he goes to vocal lessons, you know, and he really is very, you know, driven, specific, and passionate about the things he does. But I was really happy that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, congratulations to Edward.